Jim Harbaugh wanted to stay at Michigan, but now he's the coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. So, what happened? Welcome to Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football. I am Cliff, your host, and with me, as always, is Mac. We all thought Warde Manuel was the problem, but a new book coming out on August 27th called The Price: What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos suggests a different possibility. First, according to the book, Harbaugh wanted to stay at Michigan. Just let that sink in for a minute. He wanted to stay. So why did he leave? It's an excerpt, so there's not a ton of info, but there's an interesting tidbit here about the overreach of the NCAA. It says, in the wake of the Connor Stallions sign stealing investigation, say that 5 times fast, the NCAA wanted access to Harbaugh's professional and personal cell phone texts and voicemails dating back 18 months. That is a huge invasion of privacy because they had no evidence Harbaugh knew anything about this, and they even said as much. Second, since this is what we call a witch hunt, and Harbaugh has said he's innocent and everybody on the team is innocent, he needed support from Warde Manuel, the Regents, and Tony Petitti, and he wasn't getting it. Harbaugh's lawyer, Tom Mars, believed they were going to punish Harbaugh no matter what they found or didn't find, so perhaps Warde Manuel wasn't the only problem. So, Mac, what do you think of this new information? Is it new, or is it what we suspected all along, that the NCAA was on a witch hunt to punish Harbaugh and neither Michigan nor the Big Ten would stand behind him? What do you think?
I think that it confirms everything that we already knew, but the twist is that I think Ward Manuel actually kind of has a point, or maybe just isn't as much the bad guy as we thought. So I was listening to Isaiah Hole a little bit earlier, and he made an interesting point, and I'm inclined to agree, although I want to push back on a little bit. So he was saying that Ward Manuel, the Board of Regents have to do what's best for the University of Michigan. Okay, that makes sense. That's why they're elected. They're elected, right? Yeah, they're elected.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Ward Manuel, Santa Ono, they also have a responsibility to do what's best for the university, what's best for the program, and all that. And it was pretty clear, according to Harbaugh's lawyer here and his agent, I think, that the Committee on Infractions was going to find Harbaugh guilty of something. And Isaiah Hole basically said that it was pretty clear, according to his lawyer, that the Committee on Infractions basically, through the public media or through the news media, had already convicted Harbaugh of something. And so the next step was to just go into Michigan, start investigating, and find something that pointed to what they wanted to be true, which
A
is why
fishing expedition.
a fishing expedition. Yeah. So they were trying to find anything and everything they could to make their conclusion that they had already drawn and convicted Harbaugh of in the court of public opinion to be true. They wanted it to be true. So it was never going to be a fair fight, which I believe is probably why Ward Manuel didn't want to give Harbaugh any assurances. And I completely understand the point of view from both parties at this point. Harbaugh wants assurances that no matter what happens from the NCAA, which it sounds like they were going to do something. If Harbaugh stayed at Michigan, the NCAA was more likely to do something, possibly the proverbial hammer. Um, but that Michigan also didn't want to have to deal with the fallout. So if Jim Harbaugh ends up getting suspended for half a season or more, Isaiah Hole made this point, and I'm going to push back on it, but he said that Michigan would be on the hook for Harbaugh's contract. What that suspension looks like, though, is something that I would want to see before I took anyone's side here. If Harbaugh is suspended for the games like he was last season, he's coaching throughout the week. Figure out a game plan for Saturday. If it's only half a season, make do, figure it out.
Mhm.
Because at that point you can still have you can give Harbaugh his contract that makes him the highest paid college coach, which I believe there was a stipulation in there that he would remain the highest paid college coach. If somebody else got a raise, he would get a raise that made him again the highest paid college coach. But if he's suspended, it depends on what the suspension looks like. If he has nothing to do with the program, he literally cannot step inside Schembechler Hall for the entirety of the suspension, then yeah, I get Michigan's point. They don't want to have to be on the hook for however many millions of dollars a year that they're paying Harbaugh without getting any work out of Harbaugh. At the same time, they've already suspended him for 6 total games. They suspended him for half of last season, but he was still able to coach the team throughout the week. Maybe that's worth it. It turns out Michigan didn't really need him for game days, including against the two best teams in the Big Ten, Penn State and Ohio State. So maybe it works out. I'm not saying that I would want that to be a long term solution. I don't think any program really wants to have to come up with contingencies for the probability that their coach is suspended for half the season. And I don't think that Harbaugh wants to sit at home on Saturdays either. So I honestly get both sides here. The NCAA is acting like Big Brother and is going to convict Harbaugh of whatever they want, however they want. Harbaugh wants assurances that Michigan's going to back him up. Michigan wants assurances that they're not going to have to pay a coach who isn't actually working for them. I mean, it sucks all the way around, but it's not necessarily Warde Manuel's fault. It's just the corrupt NCAA. I mean, if this proves anything that we knew all along, the NCAA is corrupt and should be disbanded. And frankly, from some of the other news that's come out, is on their way to being disbanded.
It makes me wonder. You mentioned maybe the suspension was enough, and it seems like the suspension came about because they know that Connor Stallions had an impermissible scheme designed, but they don't know if it had any impact on the game. They can't connect Harbaugh to what Connor Stallions was doing, and now skip over to the president of the NCAA has said that Michigan won the national championship fair and square, which would include the games, going backwards then to get there. So maybe then all of this to settle all of it, the suspension was enough to cover what they think may have happened, or but they can't really connect to what happened. So, meaning there wasn't enough to really put it all together. So let's just suspend him for 6 games and call it good.
Well, there was never enough. That's what I'm getting
Right,
from this, is
right.
that there was never enough evidence to actually to justifiably suspend him. But there is evidence to suggest that Harbaugh upset them
Mhm.
with all of his revenue sharing talk. I mean, the NCAA just lost a lawsuit against the House of Representatives for that very subject, and that very subject was brought up and pushed for by Harbaugh the loudest of all CFB coaches. Harbaugh was the loudest for revenue sharing for players. So
Right.
I think that he just upset the corrupt NCAA, and the NCAA wanted him out no matter what it took. And if that took taking a molehill and fabricating a mountain around it, then that's what they were going to do.
Right. And that's what I think it kind of looks like, is that they got this information from whatever that source was. And they come out and they say, no, Harbaugh has done this horrible thing that is desecrating the game. And then they go and gather evidence, and all they can find is Connor Stallions might have Connor Stallions had a spreadsheet, but we don't know if it actually impacted the game.
Hmm.
So that's all they had. So now they've got to save face. They do have these little bits and pieces of what Connor Stallions was doing. Maybe somebody went to a game, um, but they can't tie it to Harbaugh. So then they just bring it down to save face. Just suspend yourself for 3 games. We're going to suspend you for 3 games, and that'll be enough. And if you win, then you've uh, justified yourself. If you lose, then obviously we were right.
Right, and I think it infuriated the NCAA and the Big Ten when Michigan won those games,
Right.
because now Michigan can look back at the Big Ten and say, not only did you find no evidence, it also did not change the outcome of our games. We won them without our head coach.
Yep.
So Tony Petitti, I have thoughts on Tony Petitti. My thinking is that he's just doing wherever the wind blows, Tony Petitti is going to be going,
Yep.
and he doesn't want to get on the wrong side of the NCAA, probably because the NCAA and the Power Five seem to be in on things together, judging by these articles that's coming out about the lawsuit. Don't really know how to read into that, but I have a feeling that
Mhm.
Tony Petitti did not want to upset the NCAA, and also he has reason to not like Harbaugh too much either, because the revenue sharing is going to come from the Power Five profits as well, if I'm to understand this correctly.
Yep.
And honestly, if not, then it just makes Tony Petitti look spineless all the more.
Right. And when you get this kind of money involved, I think people forget they want to believe that college sports are on the up and up and just pure as the driven snow kind of thing. But in reality, there's so much money involved that guys will at that level will stab each other in the back because there's millions, perhaps billions of dollars at stake. And
Yeah.
like you said, if Harbaugh is the honorable one, and he seems to be, and Tony Petitti seems to be the guy who keeps hiding behind things and wouldn't even, according to the excerpt in that book, Tony Petitti wouldn't even respond to their requests. So when that happens, it starts to become suspect. Why won't Tony Petitti come out now when Harbaugh apparently is divulging private conversations, but Tony Petitti won't even answer a couple of questions?
Well, and Tony Petitti stood Harbaugh up too. He was supposed to meet with
Hmm.
Harbaugh to talk about it and ended up ghosting him.
Yeah.
So what is Tony Petitti hiding? If he might not be hiding anything, but why is he hiding? You know?
Right. Yeah.
Why isn't he willing to talk about it? So what happened? This everything that's come out basically like I understand Ward Manuel's position. I do. Like he's just trying to make or do what's best for the university. I feel a lot better about Ward ever since he brought in Dusty May, and it sounds like Champions Circle, I believe, is Michigan's NIL collective or one of them. They're
Hmm.
signing a national deal that's going to put Michigan's NIL on par with like Ohio State and other programs. So I've kind of softened my opinion of Ward Manuel for now. But at least in this particular situation, I can understand that Santa Ono, the regents, they have reason or they need to protect the university. Harbaugh wants to protect himself, and the NCAA is just corrupt big brother.
Right. That's what we think. What do you think? Drop a comment and let us know. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out all the channels on the Voice of College Football Network. You can catch us, Mac and I, live on the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show Monday nights at 8 right here on YouTube. Mac, take us out.
This is Michigan football at the voice of college football.